In this lecture, we're looking at a religion that is indigenous to Japan, known as Shinto or Kanagara.
Okay, very similar to what you have in China, there is syncretic, which is a mixing of religious traditions within Japan. In China, you saw Confucius teachings along with the Tao and Buddha Dharma all combined. And here in Japan, Buddhism and Confucius teachings also have a great deal of influence on the religious culture of Japan. But because of nationalistic pride that emerged in the 17th century, Japanese scholars did some ardent work to try to discover what part of their spirituality, what part of their religion was indigenous and unique to Japan. And so what these scholars were able to extract from the religious practices as being unique to Japan is what we refer to as Shinto, which means the way of the divine. Very similar to Chinese religions like the Tao, Shinto does have a strong focus or emphasis upon veneration of and respect for ancestors. And of all the religions we study this semester, Shinto is the most pantheistic. If pantheism is a new word for you, theos means gods or the divine. Pan means every or all. And so a pantheistic religion is a religion that believes the divine, the deity, has poured itself out completely into nature and into the creation. So everything is divine. And so what you're going to see in just a moment on the next slide is the view of the deity or deities within Shinto as actually spilling their own essence into the nature. And pictured here is a torii gate, which is your primary symbol of Shinto, and to pass under a torii gate, whether in the water or on land, is to understand yourself as having traveled to an especially divine or sacred place. A cosmogony is a story within any religion that describes how the cosmos or the universe, all of creation, came about. And Shinto does have a very unique cosmogony. The divine beings or spirits within Shinto are referred to as kami, and the cosmogony of Shinto begins with two of these kami, together called the Amatsu, standing on a floating bridge and standing over an enormous body of water. It turns out later that we discover that this body of water is the ocean, and it's just one enormous ocean because there is no such thing as land yet. The Amatsu have two bejeweled spears, and they dip these spears into the water and stir the water. And as they're lifting the spears out of the water, water from the spears begins to drip back into the ocean. And as soon as those drops of water hit the ocean, land masses, either the islands of Japan or all land masses everywhere in the earth, are created. The Amatsu then create another kami in their own image, a sun goddess named Amaterasu, and she will be the one in the sky who looks over this new creation that has now been divided into land and water. And then as a final act, holding true to the pantheistic nature of Shinto, the Amatsu pour their very own essence into the land, becoming plants and animals and people and mountains and forest. Now, the term kami can be confusing because it can relate to personal beings like the Amatsu in the story that we just heard. But similar to Buddha Dharma, kami can also refer to an impersonal divine reality. So kami is a very flexible term that can be used either way. And the religion Shinto is often referred to as Kanagara, and Kanagara is a teaching similar to the Tao of Taoism, in which you recognize within nature that there is a particular harmony that is to be achieved, such as in the Tao, the balance between the yin and the yang. Well, to be in touch with the kami and to understand the essence of the kami and to live content and at peace with that is to achieve a state of balance known as Kanagara, and Kanagara becomes synonymous with Shinto as a name for this religion. As we move on to places of worship, we do have shrines or sanctuaries that the Shinto will visit, but you're not allowed to go to the most central holy place in the shrine unless you are a priest or priestess. It is an egalitarian religion, and so we do have priests and priestesses who serve the laity when they come to the shrine. The primary way of knowing that you have passed into a Shinto shrine is that you walk under a gate known as a torii. And so here you have pictured a couple of different tories, and of course you had the symbolic torii on the previous slide, but this is to enter into an especially sacred place. And Shinto is well known for being an iconoclastic religion, which means that to have a picture or statue or a relic that you worship as the actual deity, as the actual kami, is considered a distraction from true worship. So you can certainly have a painting that would represent a story from Shinto, but you would never call that painting or picture the actual kami, the actual god. That would be considered idolatry and something very much against the spirit of Shinto. I mean, why would you worship a picture when all of the creation, all of nature is divine, already there before you? Now, even though Shinto is egalitarian today and has been egalitarian in its history, you will hear in just a moment that there was a span of several decades in the late 19th and early 20th century where this religion lost its way for a bit and became extremely patriarchal. The two primary ceremonies or rituals that you're responsible for with the Shinto religion are Misoji and the Oharai ceremony. Misoji is pictured at the top right, in which a Shinto gentleman is standing under a waterfall, and the idea is that the water, as it cleanses his physical body, that physical body is so in tune with the spirit that he is cleansed spiritually also. The word for wickedness or evil within Shinto is sumi, and it's believed that sumi, like a parasite, clings to the soul, and that Misoji is a way of washing that sumi parasite away. I did have a student mention last week that he could not help but notice the similarity of the Misoji ceremony to the ceremony or sacrament of baptism within the Christian tradition of water physically being present, but a deeper spiritual understanding of what is taking place. And the Oharai ceremony involves a broom that sweeps away sumi or impurity. Here we have a group of businessmen gathering for a convention or a meeting, and the broom is sweeping away anything that would bring about a lack of a spirit of compromise at the meeting, or anything that would be a distraction from the purpose of their convention. And if you make a big purchase, like a new home or a car, you would have a Shinto priest or priestess come by with the Oharai broom to sweep it over the car and to sweep throughout the house to avoid engine trouble or a transmission going out on the car. To bless the foundation of a home so that it won't crack and lead to expensive repairs. So the Oharai ceremony is used for very practical reasons in everyday life. Now, as mentioned to you earlier, there was a span of a few decades in which Shinto did become quite patriarchal. This began happening in the late 19th century when the Meiji dynasty sought to make use of the religion Shinto as a way of granting themselves greater power. Just as you had the concept of a heavenly mandate in Chinese religions, that Tian or heaven chooses who the emperor is, the Meiji dynasty began arguing that the kami are the ones who actually selected them to rule, and so it would be wrong of anyone to question their political and military leadership. And not only had the kami selected the Meiji dynasty, but the Meiji emperors began demanding that they be worshipped as kami or as deities, and the people of Japan began doing that. And this is what we refer to as state Shinto, because the religion of Shinto and the political empire become merged together. They become one reality. And the state Shinto is the expression of Shinto that is very patriarchal, that loses its egalitarian roots. Now, with Japan's defeat in World War II, we see the complete destruction of state Shinto, because as part of the treaty to end that war, the emperor must confess that he is not divine, that he is not a deity, and of course with the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, the Japanese people feel that the kami have abandoned them and that the divine reality no longer protects them and looks over them. And so Shinto falls out of favor after World War II and is, instead of being a religion that is treasured, becomes something that the Japanese despise and even ridicule. But within the past few decades, we've seen the reemergence of Shinto in Japan, certainly not state Shinto, but smaller schools of Shinto that we refer to as sectarian or sect Shinto. And To return back to the egalitarian roots, the two primary schools of sect Shinto that you're responsible for on your exam were both begun by female leaders. Tenrikyo and Umoto Shinto are thriving traditions of this religion in Japan today. Tenrikyo focuses upon how the body and the spirit are connected, especially in the need for healing from an injury or a cure from a disease, that the physical body can undergo particular rituals or practices that will affect the spirit and again bring about a healing or a cure. And then Umoto Shinto, pictured at the bottom right, focuses heavily on the arts, most especially music. That music creates a particular harmony that the ear can take in, but also the spirit is always looking for harmony with nature and harmony with the kami. And so music and other forms of art become pivotal in Umoto Shinto as an aid to finding Kanagara, finding that balance with the kami and with all of creation.